The Tao of the Family. Today I want to take you on a journey to come with me exploring the possibilities but also the challenges of being a parent from a yin-yang perspective. So, the Tao of the Family. I want to start with taking a look at this picture again, which is of course the Taiji symbol or the yin-yang symbol. And to remind you, we have of course the uprising forces of nature, which is the yang, which is associated with a male. And we have the downfalling part, the black fish with a white eye, which is associated with a female power of life, which is called the yin. And together they form the yin-yang. And as we all know, to start a family, you need yin and yang, likewise. And I want to repeat this very nice picture of conception to start this episode. Like I explained before, the yang, the male part in Taoist thinking, is the part connected to the heavens because it's connected to, it's driving towards the heavens. And the picture is that we men grasp into the heavens, catch the soul of our future child, and pull it down to earth. And so you could say that in that picture, the black dot is the soul of the child. And then we, during sex, we kind of hand over this energetic spiritual information, which is the soul of the child. We hand that over to our wife or our girlfriend, and then because the woman is connected to the earth, she can take the soul and put it into flesh, so to speak, wrap it into flesh, and then the child which she nourishes inside of her is released to the world. You could say that, and of course, that as well is a manifestation of the yin-yang, because the yang is the spiritual, the soul which cannot be touched in a physical way. That's the yang part of human life. And the yin part is the flesh, the substance, the dense part of life, okay, which is the body. And to form human life, of course, you need both of these aspects. And to emphasize on that point that the man reaches out into heaven and catches the soul, it's an interesting fact that the male sperm is the deciding part whether which decides whether the baby will be a boy or a girl, because it depends on the chromosomes inside of the sperm cell. Okay, so it makes sense in that way. So we know now that we of course need the forces of yin and yang. Everybody knows that, but this is of course true in multiple ways. So as parents, we invite a child from the heavens to come down to earth. And I'd like to quote Jesus at this moment, because Jesus saying in the New Testament that children are the heavenly realm, or children represent the heavenly realm on earth. And from my experience as a father, and I've been a father now for over 16 years, this statement is so true. Looking into the eyes of your child, following the happiness and the engagement of your children with the world, following the excitement of your children, who get to know the world for the very first time and seeing everything through children's eyes. If we as parents can follow their example, yes, we end up inside of the heavenly realm, which means in paradise. Okay, because little children normally, very often, they live in paradise because they are cheered up by literally everything and they enjoy everything. And yes, if there's a problem, they cry. But after a few minutes, that's done. Okay, they don't stick to suffering. Okay, if there's a reason for suffering, they suffer, and then it's done. And that is also a quality which very often in the process of getting older is lost. We adults suffer from things like depression or anxiety because we cannot let go of misery, basically. We cannot let go of grief. We cannot let go of bad things that happen to us. We kind of stick to them. We took them inside and we cannot let go. And what we can learn from children is exactly that. If there are bad things happening to us, if there's reason to grieve, if there is reason to suffer, do it as quick as you can and don't fight it. Okay? Act like children. That's why I come back to Jesus again. That's why he said, to return to paradise, you have to become childlike again. That's not the same as childish, but childlike. What he means is, in my estimation, deal with the world like children deal with the world. So that is one very important. It's not quite Taoistic, I know, but I'm interested in many different paths of knowledge and wisdom. So, of course, I try to use everything I got. Okay. So, if we become parents, there's one very important thing which happens over time with us. Because if there is someone in need for your help, which is absolutely the case, especially with little children from 0 to the age of 6 or 7, they are absolutely dependent on you making the right decisions, you providing food, you providing love. They are absolutely 100% dependent on you doing your job as a parent well. Okay? And this is a kind of... So the child has to put absolute trust in you. And that trust changes your heart. It's hard to put into words how this trust given to us by our children changes our own expectations to ourselves. Okay, so you know as a parent that everything you do matters, and that really helps you becoming an adult yourself. It helps you to grow. It helps you to actually make the right decisions, because you cannot let yourself go. You cannot give in to your selfish ideas, because you cannot afford that. You have to make sure that there is food on the table. And that really makes you grow up. It makes you become a better person. If you let it happen, of course, if you decide for that. And that is very good, because it brings forth the virtue inside of yourself. It helps you to become a better person. It helps you to grow up, to take the responsibility given to you by your own child. And the great thing is that while you're doing this, you experience that real happiness is nothing that derives from external acts or things. Okay? You experience the very fact that by taking responsibility and by acting the best you can in the service of your children, you experience what happiness, what purpose really is. And that is something which is very hard to experience without children. Okay. Maybe you can experience it if you take over responsibility for your elders, for example, or for a good friend in need. But with your own children, it's definitely a great way to experience that. You grow up, you become a better version the more you the more you let it happen, actually. So I really recommend it, not only because having children is the most beautiful thing you can experience anyway, but even for your self-development, it's just great. It's just great. And it really helps you to distinguish between superficial whims, between the seduction by superficial needs or things you believe you need, which is very often not true. But it really sharpens your sense of what is really important to have children. Because every time you do something stupid, it comes back to you and you will feel it. And if you don't, for example, if you don't take care of your own health, you won't be able to be there in a proper manner for the needs of your children, which helps you to change your ways, which really helps you to live more healthy. Because on the one hand, you'll experience that you will be more healthy and that you will have more energy for the things you have to do. And at the same time, because you love your children so much, you're motivated to prepare healthy food for them, which is of course good for everyone, because then your children will be healthy. And so also children give us such a good motivation to think about things like healthy food, to think about things like healthy habits, to think about what is virtue, because you have to think about, okay, how do I want my children to act in this world? So you have to think about how you act yourself, because children, they really just mirror you, right? Parents will know that. Children just do what they see us doing. So if we behave in a bad way, we will see that just repeated by our own children. And that's so helpful. If we look at that with open eyes, that of course it's very easy to blame the children for them, but of course that's wrong and it doesn't lead anywhere. We should really take the chance of seeing our own behavior reflected by our children to grow, to become better. Because if we become more virtuous, if we become more honest, more nice to people, more respectful, um, then we will see that also mirrored and repeated by our children. And that feels great because then we see, okay, how I act really matters. It really matters. Okay. It's very, very good. It's very good for our own development of our character. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Talking of family, another different thing to talk about is, of course, the role of sexuality in a relationship with children. Because as every parent will know, because they've experienced that, having sex with children, especially with little children, is not that easy anymore, okay? Because, well, very often, especially when the children are little, when the mother is still giving the breast. Okay, first of all, mothers tend to be tired because, well, it's a very well, it's a hard task to be there 24/7 for a little child. It's not easy. It takes energy. Okay, so mothers are tired. That's the first obstacle for sex. The second is, like I said before, 24/7 the child is there. So and that's only if you have one child. If you have more children, then it's even harder to find the time, to find the spot. Okay, and then the child is sleeping. Okay, then maybe you don't have space where you can be alone and where it's nice. So that's another obstacle for sex. And then there's the fact that very often, because the mothers are cuddling with their children all the time, it's a hormonal fact that the women do not feel the need for sex that strongly in this period, in the first months to years, actually, which is of course hard for the man, because as men we don't experience this in the same way, and we still have a sexual need. Okay. So this is the basis, which is already a bit which can be troubling. And then, because for a certain period of time you don't have sex, or you don't have much sex, it very often happens that the partners kind of they deviate from another because they don't have so much nice contact, and it's stressful very often. And of course, the man very often has to provide in these times, which is of course right, and the woman has to take care of the children. So both are exhausted, probably, which makes it hard, and which is even a kind of which easily breeds conflict. Okay, so the parents have to be very aware of that problem, and have to again and again and again really engage in their communication to sort out the conflicts, to get back into a state where they feel like a real team. Okay, so that's another demand that our children bring with them to Earth, that we as parents have to grow individually, but also as a team. Okay, men and women have to really team up and get better at communicating, get better in getting their act together, so that they don't become anxious and irritated and bitter. Because if we fail at doing that as being parents, our children will suffer as a consequence. Because if the parents have a lot of conflict, of course the children will suffer. And the children will see that mommy and daddy do not get along well. And that is not a good thing. They shouldn't see that. Okay? So it is also a great motivation for us to become better at sorting things out. Okay? And and then coming back to the sexuality, we have to work to not lose that, because as we know, and as experience and science very clearly shows, if the sex is dying inside a relationship, the relationship is dying over a long period of time. So as parents, we really should keep that in mind and keep that give that priority, because if we lose that, we lose a space of peace inside our relationship. We lose this, because sex really is the coming together and exchanging of the yin and yang forces, right? So we know that when yin and yang are one, it is called the Tao in Chinese thinking. So, and the Tao is similar to God. The Tao is how things are. The Tao is the sea of everything. So, and that's why sex is so fulfilling. And so that's why we like it so much, because it is the only way how we as man and woman can get a feeling of the heavenly unity. Okay? Because in this world, everything is yin or yang. Okay? We are separated. This is a dual world we live in. Everything is day and night, warm and cold, up and down, black and white, men and women. So we live in a world of two, but in the heavenly realm, in the realm of God, everything is one. So looking at that in that way, that's also why we long for each other so much. Why men and women are so attracted to each other, because it's the way to get to unity, to get into a kind of unity for a certain amount of time. And keeping that in mind, if we don't engage in sex, in the coming together with our partner, it's very likely that we will be frustrated over time and that we lose the connection inside of our relationship. And of course, that's very, very bad. And that is, of course, that can be the root for having sexual affairs. And that is the root for suffering and divorce and more conflict even. So it's very, very important that we take this issue seriously, and that if there are problems, if there are obstacles, be it in the physical world, like if there are space problems, for example, or be it in the psychological realm, being feelings of shame, there can be so many obstacles for sexuality inside a relationship. It's so important that we take care of that, and that we get this part to run inside of our relationship. Because when that part is functioning well, I guarantee you, everything will just align around that. That's how it is. If yin and yang work with each other harmoniously, your relationship and your family will be healthy, calm, peaceful. Overall, okay? Of course, there will be little things anyway, but that's a very, very good basis if yin and yang are harmoniously together, okay? So that's another very important thing when we talk about the healthy family. Okay, I think for now, I've talked enough. I see I've just talked for 26 minutes about this topic, and I think I put the finger on some very important points. relating to the family. And well, I can imagine coming back to this topic once more, because there is a lot more to say to that. But I think to give you an idea of how the yin-yang perspective looks at family and at having children, at being parents, I think you have an idea now. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you join me in the future for more content. Bye-bye.